Hey everybody! So for today's video, I'm going to be installing a Corelight software sensor on this Raspberry Pi 4 as part of the Corelight at Home project. Now, for those that don't know, Corelight is an awesome piece of technology based off of Bro IDS, now known as Zeek. Now you may be wondering, who is Corelight and what does this have to do with a Raspberry Pi? Well, sales engineer Gary Fisk put together a fantastic blog post to highlight Corlight's sensor now being available to run on a Raspberry Pi, where traditionally it required hardware or a VM. This new software sensor gives visibility into network traffic and can operate as a network detection and response tool. As he mentions, with everyone working from home, this fun project, known as Corelight at Home, will help you become more familiar with what is communicating on your network and more familiar with Corelight sensors and tech. More information can be found in the link to this blog post that I'll put below in this video description. Please be sure to check it out and let them know I sent you. We're going to be using this Cana kit, easily found on Amazon, which includes everything you need to build this on a Raspberry Pi 4. I also have this managed switch to go with it to allow of port mirroring so that we can use this Raspberry Pi 4 as an IDS and listen to all of the traffic that would be replicated onto one of these other switch ports. So we'll talk about that later. As far as what comes in this kit, as you can see from the label, there's quite a few goodies. But as we open it up, some breakout instructions for the GPIO header, some notes. But what we have here is a 32 gig memory card, a HDMI cable that works for the new Raspberry Pi 4's micro HDMI port. We have a case, it's a Raspberry Pi 4 itself, some heat sinks, power supply, a fan to go with the case, a USB power switch, that's pretty cool, and a memory card reader for the computer. So this is quite the complete kit and it has everything you need to get started. So now the fun part, let's do some basic assembly. We'll start out with grabbing the case and the Raspberry Pi itself, the fan, and the heat sinks. And we'll go ahead and get this part assembled and powered up for the first time. And just like that, our Cana kit is completed with our Raspberry Pi 4 installed, heat sinks, fan, in this nice case with the memory card. Next, we'll go ahead and plug this thing in to some power, a signal source, and we will get it set up. Since we plan to use Humio, let's go ahead and get our API set up. So following the instructions, we go ahead and create a new API token, and it is now available for us to use. We must be sure to set it to Corelight JSON in the assigned parser. Let's go ahead and copy that for later use. Following the API, the next step on the Humio side is to go ahead and get a dashboard set up. So let's click Create New Dashboard, and I've already downloaded a template file for Humio. This template file is going to help us with our initial executive summary. So we upload that file and give it a name. In our case, executive summary will be just fine. And then we'll click on Create Dashboard. Let's go ahead and take a look at our dashboard for now. As you can see, there isn't any data yet to populate, but we'll come back to that soon once we get the sensor online. Next, we want to go ahead and get our Raspberry Pi imaged. So we'll use the Pi Imager tool, select the Raspberry Pi OS, and then finally select our memory card. By clicking the right button, we'll go ahead and erase the card with whatever contents and begin. This process does take a while, so let's hop ahead. Now that we're done writing the contents, the verifying process will finish and the drive will be finalizing. Once this is all complete and the Pi Imager says we're good to go, we can go ahead and click Continue and remove the SD card from our computer and plug it into the Raspberry Pi. Now that we have the Raspberry Pi set up, I've taken the liberty of making a couple of configurations off camera, including setting up the Wi-Fi, SSH access, and also staging some of the setup commands in this setup.txt file found over here on the desktop. So what we'll do next is we'll go ahead and take a look at the commands required to be ran. Let's open up our document here. Our first command is going to be a wget to retrieve the files. Let's bring this over to our terminal. Paste our first command. All right. Next, we'll use a chmod to set permissions. And finally, we'll run the raspi Corelight command for the first time. Since this is the first time, it's going to require a reboot. We will proceed with a yes. Finally, it asks us to proceed one more time, and we press yes. Now that we've finished the downloading and staging process, I'll go ahead and add my credentials to access my adaptive portal. Some additional downloads will take place before our final reboot. All right, we press enter to perform the reboot now. Now that we're logged back into our Raspberry Pi after reboot, we'll go ahead and launch raspi-Corelight again. Here we're greeted by the Corelight main menu for the software, and I've already installed my license. Normally, you would have to input it here. We'll run the QC command for quick config. This quick config will walk us through and we'll finish the setup of our Corelight sensor. For the purpose of this exercise, we'll be using Humio. So we will continue to input our Humio API token. For our interface, we'll be using our Ethernet port, so ETH0. Since I manually installed my license file already by staging it in the etc folder, I do not need to put it in as part of the quick setup, so no, we will not overwrite it. As for our connector, as mentioned, we'll be using Humio, so I'll go ahead and set up the token. This is the same token we set up before during our Humio API and dashboard installation. Finally, I'll restart Corelight one last time, and we are now up and running. My logical diagram is to intercept traffic between my modem and my router, where I'll connect the two devices in line with the switch and use port 5 as mentioned for mirroring to the Raspberry Pi running the Corelight sensor. Now that our Raspberry Pi is complete, let's take a look at our executive dashboard that we set up earlier. And just like that, it's already populating with tons of data from our network. And that's all I have for now. I can't wait to dig deeper and investigate this data. If you're interested in any of the products used today, like Humio, Corelight, or even trying to set up something like this for yourself at home, please feel free to reach out to either myself in the comments below or the folks at Corelight. Have a nice day.